for being here today. Really excited to have you be part of this conversation. I'm Tracy DeForge, the founder and CEO of the Players Impact. It's a community of professional athletes making early stage venture investments. And we're really excited today to partner with Champions for Philanthropy to talk about how we can invest in diversity and inclusion. With that, I'll pass the baton, Alycia.
Hi, my name is Alycia Powell. I am the co-founder of Champions for Philanthropy, and I'm joined by my co-founder, Michelle Mees. We are a consulting agency that works with professional athletes in the charitable space, everything from helping them start up their nonprofit foundations, as well as to helping them manage it, as well, and creating charitable initiatives and strategies. So we're really excited to partner with Tracy and the Players Impact on today's event.
With that, we'd love to start off today's event having a conversation with the CEO of the Ross Initiative of Sports Equality, Diahann Billings-Burford. I know I tortured that, Diahann, I'm sorry. Hello.
Hello, you totally did it. You got them all three names right. Thanks,
Amazing.
Tracy.
I forgot to add, Diahann, that you're an award-winning CEO. We'd love to hear more about your background, what brings you to Rise, and a little bit more about what that initiative means.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having as good a night as possible. I want to thank Tracy, Alycia, and Michelle for having me. The truth is, today for me was a challenging day, and being a part of conversations like this are helping me because I just feel like we are going to create a better tomorrow, both as far as how we feel and where power lies in our community. And so I'm excited to be a part of this. I actually have not been in the sports space very long. I've been in this role 2 years, and that's probably about the time I've been in the sports space. Most of my career, I can't even say most of it has been in any one place, but the largest place has been in the not-for-profit sector. I began from an educational standpoint. I tell people all the time, I'm just like this girl from Brooklyn. The truth is, it was an organization named Prep for Prep that changed the trajectory of my life. And I really began to understand the power of the not-for-profit sector really early on. So I started in the ed space, always wanted to be a lawyer, became a lawyer, became a corporate lawyer, realized that I really, truly, truly liked money. And so that appealed to me, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that really wasn't where my passion was. And so I've been in the not-for-profit space, the government sector. I worked 5 years under Mike Bloomberg. The truth is, I find I love Mike. I'm a huge champion of Mike for his short presidential run. I was a surrogate for him, happily so. I find that I work best in corporate-like settings in the not-for-profit space. And then here recently, I was leaving Time Warner. I was heading the Time Warner Foundation. And as AT&T was coming to buy it, I realized, oh my gosh, I realized for the first time ever what a corporate buyout package looked like. And I was like, what? There are people that get paid not to work? I come from working class and quite honestly, poor people, and we only got paid to work. So this was a brand new notion. I was like, I want to do that. So I knew I was getting my package, but I didn't know what was next. And Rise was looking for a leader at about that same time. And the truth is, I just felt like it was time for me to get back to direct service, to having a greater impact on society. I was concerned about how divisive our country feels and is. And so those are some of the reasons I took the job. So I'm fairly new to this sports space, but I have been loving it. And we have been, for lack of a better word, I just had a board meeting today. I think the appropriate way to say it is we've been kicking you-know-whats and taking names, and I feel good about that.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely an interesting, I'll use that word, to be delicate environment right now around race relations, equality, social justice. If you can speak to sort of the larger macros that are happening in the US especially, and then what Rise is doing to support some of the those voices inside of the that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I tell folks, I think we're in the midst of this perfect storm, right? And to me, some of the components of the perfect storm are the pandemic. We were doing our usual at Rise, being a very visible and vocal presence at the Super Bowl in January. We moved from there to the NBA All-Star game in February. It was very different weather in Miami versus Chicago.
Yes,
it was a
it was.
painful switch, but we did it. But and then in March, right, the world as we knew it just came to a screeching halt. And we made a move. We had been planning to take our work digital, and thank goodness we had already done the groundwork for that, because when COVID hit, we had to go almost completely digital. And since then, we have successfully launched the Rise Digital Learning Series. So we were going, one part of the perfect storm is this COVID-19. And then the other part is what some people call civil unrest, but I actually think it's nothing short of like a cultural revolution in our country. And so with the two of those things coming together, Rise has really looked to really focus back on our mission and say, we are here to educate and empower the sports community to eliminate racism, to champion social justice, and to improve race relations. We're pretty clear. Our goals are to enhance our programs all the time, engage champions, and to elevate our brand. And so we kind of doubled down on those three big goals. We have been operating in this perfect storm. And today, again, I had a board meeting today, and I shared with the board a quote by Abraham Lincoln that says, basically, it was about, I prepared. So when this opportunity came, I didn't know when it was coming, we'd be able to take advantage of it. And I think that's where we are as an organization. So we've been adjusting, going digital, but addressing some of these issues head on that we've been preparing for. This is what we were built and born, for lack of a better word, to do, and that's what we've been doing.
So Diahann, some of the, you guys have great relationships with athletes. How would you recommend for them if they're a bit hesitant about using their voice or using their platform? How would you encourage them to do so?
I think there are a number of ways. When I said we educate and empower, we definitely have been in this empowerment space a lot in the past few months. So a couple of ways. First thing I tell folks is, find your organization that you trust. For every athlete, Rise is not the organization, but for many, we have become an organization that they trust. And I say that because this is a complex landscape. I think people always come in, all athletes come in wanting to do good, but they don't realize they could be stepping into something that may or may not add to the solution if they don't do it well. So find an organization to partner with, that this is what they do day in and day out. And not that they replace your voice, but they can help you enhance your voice as an athlete. I start there. Then the second thing I would say is, and they probably are neck and neck, is find out what you're truly passionate about. There's a difference between being moved in the moment and having a true passion. And I often think for athletes, we don't, I always think it's funny when people are like, Diahann, what do you think about athletes, like expressing how they feel? I'm like, why do we make a distinction between athletes and every other human being? Athletes are like every other human being. So I think that they've got to take the time to be introspective and figure out, what are you truly passionate about? What do you care about? Because when you enter this arena, like any other arena, people are going to hold you to task. And so you need to have that passion there to back you up. You need to have an organization that you trust to help support you in whatever else you wish to do. And then, I say this to everyone. Again, I think we're in the midst of a cultural revolution, and I am here for it. I love it. I want there to be more of it. And so I think that means the third thing is be bold. I do think in athletes, we find this personality type that at least knows that there is a way to be bold. They know what it feels like. They know how to embrace it. And I ask them to step into that in this space as well.
I hear you, and I love that cultural revolution. Can you give us some examples of athletes who have done it well, who have really like taken this issue? I think that there are a lot of athletes who are nervous to say the wrong thing, whether it's because now they have more of a direct relationship with their fans, given social media and whatnot. Their microphones are louder than ever, and that might cause some trepidation. Who's done it really well, in your opinion?
Yeah, I've been talking about two. I think there are two in particular. There's a ton that we've been working with, but there are two in particular I would start with. One is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick is the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champions. And when I tell you, we work with so Rise works with the NFL on their NFL Votes initiative. We have now provided voter registration and voter education programming to 13 of the clubs. The Chiefs have done so much more above and beyond those sessions because of Patrick and a few other players' passion in this space, and because they've been willing to sit and learn and get learned up and been willing to allow their platforms to be used for it. So Patrick actually launched, we had our first session. After the session, the Chiefs came back and said, hey, we think the guys want to do a PSA. Can you help us with the script? We put together a script for the PSA. That PSA launched, and in a week, we had 400 people get on our Turbo Vote. We have Rise to Win at turbovote.org. 400 people get on the Turbo Vote either to register or they were already registered and they wanted to be notified of their elections across 39 states, and that's in 1 week. Right? That doesn't even account like because what happens is generally this builds as things get pushed out more and more. This wasn't a PSA that was put on any network. It was just online, just in the digital space. Like literally, I think the Chiefs put it out on their Twitter and we did too. I think that's it. So so I definitely, Patrick is one I noticed. And I think everybody needs to look out for a woman, Gwen Berry. So Gwen is a field event athlete. I think she is amazing. I think she's calling the IOC and other organizations to really think about Rule 50, really think about how we are sanctioning athletes who seek to be activists. Even if Rule 50 doesn't change, she is certainly going to require that the organizations are transparent in how they are applying Rule 50 and how they're seeking to minimize, certain activism in their public arenas. So I think Gwen is certainly one to watch, and she's certainly having an impact already. She's got a piece this week in the Washington Post, I think one last week in New York Times, not to mention what she's doing on her own social media platforms.
Yeah, there's some really great examples.
Thank you for that, Diane. So what would you like for the audience your final thought? What would you like for them to be left with?
I love what you guys are doing in this organization. And one of the things I wanted to leave this group with is I keep looking at the former Redskins, the current Washington football team. And I've said this now on a couple of calls. I've been with a couple of sponsorship kind of business consortiums having this conversation. Diversity and inclusion in the investment space is important, but I think it is more important for us to think about how many reasons it is important. I think it is important to have diversity, which is merely the representation of different types of people. But I think it is even more important to have inclusion at points of power throughout organizations. When we look at the name of that one NFL franchise, and I don't want to pick on them because we have franchises across leagues and Rise works with all of them. But when we look at what just recently happened, again, during this time of cultural revolution, the truth of the matter is it was sponsors, it was business, it was investors that made that final push to have a more inclusive decision be made. So people have been working for decades to change the name of the Washington Redskins. And when investors and big companies said, listen, change the name or we're not playing you're not playing in our sandbox. The name was changed. And so I would like for everyone on the call to be thinking about that as you're thinking about investing. It is not only about having investing in different types of companies. That is important. But it is also understanding that we live in a systemic oppression. And one of the ways to combat systemic oppression is to have people who are more compassionate and more empathetic in positions where they can call shots and impact really important decisions. And so I hope you will take all of that into today. I hope you'll take all of that into how you approach this work and just realize the power that is not only in this activity for you, the individual, but for our society.
So important. Thank you so much for that. And how can everyone get in touch with you and Rise?
Please, please, please go to Rise to Win, that's TOWin.org, our website. I think you guys will find really great content there. Again, we launched the Rise Digital Learning Series this year, and we've gotten nothing but great feedback and amazing engagement. Data was sent to us recently. So our website, I think that's the same for all of our handles, Rise to Win, or look for Rise on any social media platform. We're there. We would love for you to follow us. We would love for you to share things with us. And then I would say if there's anyone here, two things that, if there are athletes that are looking for places to partner, we have different ways that we ask athletes to help be a part of this work, whether it's helping to facilitate. I didn't even talk about our work with youth, whether it's helping with a campaign, a social media campaign, but there are tons of ways we would love to engage. And I think we are customer friendly and very understanding, even as we are very clear on what we stand for. And then the last thing is we actually have a fellowship that is only for former professional athletes that's posted now. I'm gonna send it to Tracy and send it to Alycia. I don't actually think I've sent that link. We recently got Group 1001, who made a pretty significant gift to us to fund those two fellowships, one for a man, one for a woman, annual, only for that population. And so we are really looking to add to our team in that way.
That's amazing. We'll be sure to share it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Hopefully we'll see you in Tampa. I don't know.
Yeah, girl, they're planning on it. I guess if they're there, we'll be there.
That's right. If they're there, we'll be there.
Yeah.
All
Take
right.
care.
See you soon.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so now we are going to move into our impact investing panel. The impact investing panel will be led by David Meltzer. Dave is the co-founder of Sports One Marketing and formerly served as the CEO of the renowned Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment Agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. His life's mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. The simple yet powerful mission has led him on an incredible journey to provide one thing, value. And all his content and communication, that's exactly what you'll receive. As part of that mission for the past 20 years, he's been providing free weekly trainings to empower others to be happy. And I get to tune in on Fridays and always come out with a lot of inspiration. So I really encourage you to check it out. So Dave, thank you so much. Good to see you. And next on the panel, we have Tunde. Tunde is the senior associate on the investment team at Republic, an angel-list spin-out and investment platform that helps startups and private companies raise capital and allows anyone to become a micro angel investor. In his role, he sources companies looking to raise capital, educates them on the value of Republic's platform, and assists in screening and due diligence. Before joining Republic, Tunde was an analyst in the prime services group at Goldman Sachs, where he helped to manage and facilitate short trading flows between institutional asset managers and hedge funds. He serves as a mentor to two nonprofits, SEO Global and Pursuit Transformation Company, and is on the junior board of Raised by Us. Tunde, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So next we have Morgan Simon, last but not least. Morgan has close to 2 decades of experience making finance a tool for social justice. And that time, she's influenced over $150 billion and is a regularly sought out expert on impact investing. Her book, Real Impact, The New Economics of Social Change, has been featured everywhere from Harvard Business School to the United Nations. She's a regular voice in media and active investor as founding partner of Candide Group, a registered investment advisor. Morgan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so Tracy and I are going to exit the screen, and Dave, let you take over here.
All right, well, thank you so much. What a great purpose, passion, and profitability for athletes. And Morgan, I'm going to start with you because I imagine that everybody is not quite certain what impact investing is. So I thought it would help to lay the groundwork if you could give us your perspective of what impact investing is.
Sure. I would say that impact investing is really about legacy. That when we think about investing in general, it's the legacy that we're trying to create for our family and our communities. And part of that is really looking at this question of where does your money spend the night? That a lot of us really have no clue, right? That it goes with a financial advisor. Maybe you know the asset classes, it's in stocks, it's in bonds, but what is it actually doing in the world is a really critical question. And impact investing is the idea that you can marry your money and your values, that you can make the money that you want for your family. And as part of the legacy that you're building, also make sure that you're supporting the broader community. You know, I'm calling today from Oakland, California, which is, the legacy land of Tupac. And the song Changes, right? One of his lines is, you made $1 today, but you did it in a sleazy way. And I think that that's essentially what a lot of investing is. It's pretty sleazy, right? That it can be investing in things like private prisons that make up to $750 a night by locking people up. It can mean the companies that are behind climate change that are causing the fires right now in California and wreaking havoc across the world. So the idea is that I don't want to advance my legacy by hurting someone else's family. I want to feel really good that I'm able to grow my assets in a way that's also growing the community. And I think that that's especially critical when we're talking about this conversation about equity, economic equity, racial equity, and the ways that how we put money through communities has the power to help or harm them. And I think the good news is that we've now really been able to prove over time that you can do this and make money. Right, so Candide Group, we work with families, foundations, athletes, and influencers who want their money working for justice. We've invested in over 90 companies and funds, over half of which are led by women and people of color. We're at about 120 million of assets under management, and that's quite small for investing. But it's quite a lot when you think about the potential impact that has. So often when we think about impact, we're just thinking philanthropy, how much money we give away. And if, let's say I have $1 million net worth, maybe making a $15,000 or $50,000 donation, that's really substantial, right? But what if all of my money, if that whole million was working for social justice all the time as it was achieving my financial goals, because it was investing in clean energy, because it was investing in low-income communities and affordable housing, right? So that's the concrete opportunities that we and so many others are finding through impact investing.
That's amazing. You know, we were joking earlier, Morgan, about the sign behind me that money doesn't buy happiness. And I told you, you know, it can if you shop for the right things. And shopping for the right things is shopping for our communities and the people that actually represent our communities, not just the top 1% of our communities, but everybody that represents the communities. And the best way to do that is to provide access and investment. And Tunde, you have facilitated so many different great venture catalysts to small business, private business, entrepreneurs, that in my opinion, Morgan was stating all the social economic problems that we have. I believe entrepreneurs, maybe this is self-promoting, but I believe entrepreneurs are the ones that are going to save the world. We're the ones that are going to figure out how to solve climate change and all of these other issues and extracting oxygen from fire. So even if people try to ruin our climate, we can just extract the oxygen and make it go away. I've seen extraordinary things from entrepreneurs. What impact does a small investment of athletes and entertainers and other people who put their money back into their communities to create that legacy, what impact does that have?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think when you think about kind of like athletes kind of coming back to their communities, it's really about kind of, you know, what Maureen mentioned, which is legacy, right? You know, they've spent their careers going through day-to-day grueling training, suffering through injuries, and really kind of developing this knowledge about hard work, perseverance, the importance of like not giving up. And they want to bring these secrets, and they want to kind of bring them and share them back with, you know, not only non-athletes in the community, but the broader community generally, who can kind of benefit from that wisdom when it comes to either starting businesses or building up, you know, stronger financial futures, or breaking kind of like the legacy of poverty, depending on you know, where you come from. And it's really just about kind of like generally helping the community, reinvesting in the community, and giving back. And I think when it comes to, you know, working with athletes, they tend to be people who serve as role models for their community, and can truly have a direct impact on kind of like youth and other different community organizations that they're involved in. So for example, we've partnered with TPI to work with Wendell Carter Jr. He has a really strong emphasis on investing in Black entrepreneurs and diverse entrepreneurs, and really giving them the chance to gain access to the capital that they need to get their businesses off the ground. It's something that's near and dear to his heart, and him being able to go into those businesses, and whether it's, you know, providing like his support from a financial perspective, or just providing visibility through his platform, it makes an entire world of difference to these young companies that are struggling to gain access to the resources that they need to you know, grow and operate on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome. And Morgan, you know, athletes have so many subjective powers. Some are misused or misguided, or taken advantage of, or manipulated. Is impact investing a common way that athletes leverage their platforms? And if so, are there other ways they can leverage their platforms in order to create the significant legacy that they want to leave?
Sure. I think that there's two elements to that. So one is where they choose to invest their own money, and then the influence that they have on their community. And to tell an example of an athlete who's participated in both those ways with us, Derek Morgan, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, who's gone on, and great that you're smiling for him. He's a wonderful guy. And he's been doing opportunity zone investing through a new fund. We've worked with him for a number of years and helped bring him to investment opportunities like Bitwise, which is doing tech training in low-income communities across the country. Macro, which is a multicultural media production company that did Just Mercy, is doing the Fred Hampton project that's coming out. So these are for-profit businesses with amazing social purpose, and that he's been able to really leverage his resources to pursue his financial goals for his family, but also to have these wonderful impact stories to be able to tell. And part of it for him, you know, he had been donating to summer camps that were doing football and computer science and tech training. And he realized that, you know, it could be that 100,000 could fund 100 kids for a summer, but that his investment of 100,000 could be a sustainable resource training thousands of people every year, right? So really the ability to leverage greater impact through investing, I think that's one of the opportunities that you see. And then second, the opportunity to be an influencer through that. So we also led a campaign that was 30 plus athletes and influencers who committed to keep their money out of private prisons, and then a select collective that committed 10 million to social investing, of saying, it's not only that I want my money out of the bad, but I want to proactively go to the good. And then I want to encourage my fans to look at this with me, right? So the extension of campaigns like Buy Black, that you can also bank Black, right? That you can also be looking at the different ways that your money is part of the financial system, even if you only have $100 in the bank, right? That we have so much more collective financial power. And I think sometimes people would look at athletes investing and say, that's amazing, but that's unattainable. You know, that's not something that I as a fan can really follow, which is different than, well, I absolutely do have control over where I put my money in the bank. And if I have a pension fund, I can see if there's a social choice option. You know, I have ways of interacting with the financial system that I can feel really good about, and that an athlete can help make more accessible and tangible to me.
You know, guys like Derek Morgan, who I've worked with and mentored as well, they're, you know, born entrepreneurs. And I know there's several others around, but one of the things that worries me the most, Tunde, is that athletes are so focused on being the greatest in the world at something. It's something that when they don't have familiarity with an area, they run away from it, and they don't utilize the superpowers that they've been given. They don't utilize the platform and the influence that they can have to create a significant change and a significant legacy for themselves, because they fear the first step. They fear they don't know how to approach it. What advice would you give to those athletes and how to start in approaching impact investing?
Yeah, I think the first thing it starts off with is kind of honing in on their beliefs and the causes that they want to support. So figuring out kind of, is it social justice, racial justice, is it climate change? And then from there, I think, athletes tend to have, extremely powerful networks that can be like their strongest resource. So encouraging them to kind of leverage their networks to tap into specific communities that are focused on social impact investing, or communities like TPI, which play an important role in bringing like-minded individuals together to share knowledge and resources, are really kind of the first places to start. And I think more recently we've seen kind of a groundswell of different organizations looking to kind of tap into the power and platform that athletes have. So for example, I work closely with Rashawn Williams, who works at Manhattan Venture Partners, and he recently partnered with DraftKings to create a venture studio called Drive. And their approach is really to kind of focus on athlete-facing initiatives that are around education, opportunities, getting them exposure to kind of have access to former and current venture capitalists that are in the tech world, and using that as a way for them to get hands-on learning and experience, and really, that kind of tutoring that they need to be able to kind of gain the knowledge and be confident when they walk into those rooms. So I think I would emphasize kind of tapping into those networks and seeking out platforms like Drive that can get them educated.
One of the other issues, too, Morgan, with just diversity and inclusion alone, is it's hyper emotional and complex. And I think, everyone here knows that sometimes we have to tiptoe, even myself as a middle-aged white male who has worked very hard, as business partners Warren Moon, to create some sort of awareness, inclusion, diversity, having a business partner like mine. It's still difficult because we don't know what we don't know. And even with Black Lives Matter, I spent the first few days under ridicule from a lot of people that I should be speaking up, and I was just learning because I wanted to learn what I didn't know, and I know that I don't know. And to leverage the situation of others to understand how to communicate effectively to create impact and change is so important. The issues that exist today, how do you help educate the athlete of how they can have the greatest impact for diversity and inclusion when the issues are muddled, muddy, and complex? It was what I call a messy mind. I've never seen an issue where there's so many people with such good intentions that end up in the wrong place. And athletes especially are hypersensitive because of their brand not to end up in the right place.
Sure. And I think going back to Tunde's answer around how do you really identify the experts? And I think about that from two levels in terms of asset managers that can provide the right guidance of how to enter the space, and then the underlying entrepreneurs and fund managers and what they're doing. And when we look at what the status quo is, which is that less than 2%, 2.2% of global assets are managed by firms owned by women or people of color, then we shouldn't be that surprised that less than 10% of venture is going to women or people of color, right? And what I would say when we talk about the idea that it's difficult to do diversity, I would posit that to invest in 90% white men, you'd have to go out of your way, right? That there are so many talented entrepreneurs of color, and particularly when we're talking about affected communities. What's interesting is that as Candide Group, we never put a flag in the ground saying we're going to make sure that over half of our investees are women or people of color. What we said was we are going to look for the absolute best entrepreneurs and fund managers that are working in these communities. And we're not surprised that they often reflect the communities that they're working in. So I think to some degree, it's simply taking the blinders off that this is possible. And also noting that if we keep relying on the same generation of asset managers to do that work, it's not going to happen, right? So knowing there are so many talented brown and black-led firms out there that people can be investing in. So finding that expertise. And I think this also to me dovetails in with the other challenge that you mentioned around kind of finding general expertise and just purely on the financial side, even taking the impact side out. as I started to learn more about the sports space the last couple of years, one of the things that I became really indignant about, and I'm sure others on this call share as well, is just lack of access to quality advice. And that the core of my business is off basically branches of the 7th wealthiest family in America. And it occurred to me, why shouldn't athletes who are first generation wealth holders get access to the exact same quality of financial management? And that to me is just as much a goal in ensuring that there is wealth for future generations of those first generation wealth holders is just as critical to me as the impact that they're making out in the world. So I think that's a broader point of how do you find expertise both on the impact, but also on the financial side continues to be critical in that conversation. And then finally, to address the part of your question of how do you know when social change is real? You know, there's a reason why my book is called Real Impact, right? It's so easy to get this stuff wrong. And that impact, you know, the Merriam-Webster definition of impact is to impinge upon, especially forcefully. And that doesn't sound good, right? Like, who would want to be the impinge upon investor? So it means that we have to do a lot of partnering with social movements, you know, really want to echo something that Diahann said earlier on of how do you make sure to find the groups that really know those communities and know the work that can be done, and then providing the resources coupled with proper financial management. So that sounds like a mouthful, but there's a lot of people who are doing it, right? So I think it's sort of that the water is warm and that we just need to be prepared for the next generation of finance to look a lot different than our parents' generation.
Yeah, absolutely. For both of you, this may be the last question determined by how long it takes you to answer. You know, there seems to be, and I'm probably the oldest one in here, this resurgence of social change, social justice, socioeconomic change and justice throughout my entire life. And we hope for progress, not perfection. But with athletes especially, they are so geared to persevere. They're so geared to be ferocious in what they do, and they expect and attach their emotions so much of their lives to outcomes. There's a winner and a loser. They see a time or a score. And when we have real impact, it's a legacy, like you said. And some of those, as Dennis Waitley said, you know, we're planting seeds under trees that we may never sit under, but it's really important that we spend our lives and our focus and our attention in planting those seeds, that we need to be ferocious and persistent and consistent in the pursuit of that change, of that impact, but we realistically may never see it. I'd love to hear from both of you on how you keep an athlete engaged and excited and motivated when they do attach their emotions to an outcome, and sometimes they may not see that outcome even in their own lifetime, but allow them to really enjoy the persistent pursuit with their leverage of their influence and their platform. How do we help them understand the true nature of legacy and enjoy that pursuit?
Yeah, I can try to tackle that first. I think at Republic, you know, kind of with some of our athlete fund initiatives and kind of partnering with you know, the TPI network broadly, what we're trying to do is help educate athletes on the value of kind of like investing early and kind of spreading seeds and planting that foundation, right? Understanding that, you know, statistically most startups are not going to succeed. It's really about kind of spreading a broad and a wide base. And being able to kind of get out there and meet founders face to face, especially founders that they care about, that look like them, or that are working and serving in communities like them, and then kind of like, you know, doing the work above and beyond to kind of, you know, take it one step further to help them drive that impact. And I think on an ongoing basis, it's about kind of like looking at the wins that are happening and kind of like tracking those over time. But then keeping your focus also on the bigger picture about changing the face of entrepreneurship within the U.S. I think, you know, we've seen the conversation around, you know, changing or getting access to capital to founders of color, and how, you know, all the talk that's been happening over the course of this summer. And this is probably going to be a decade that's going to be pretty monumental and instrumental for, you know, underrepresented and underestimated founders within the U.S. But we can't keep up, you know, that push and that groundswell to continue to support these founders. So, you know, for us, it's just about the mission and knowing that this is the long game, kind of making sure that we're continuing to keep that in mind and celebrating the small victories that happen, you know, especially when you're talking about early stage investing.
I actually would say that I feel like with impact investing, you plant the seeds and then the forest is like so luscious and beautiful and dropping fruits all the time because you have these incredible stories of impact along the way. So it's not just about, you know, whether traditional venture companies or investments where you're just kind of seeing ticks on a paper of what's revenue this week or not, but that it's actually tied to outcomes in the world that you can be really proud of. And I think that that's part of keeping athletes engaged in the story, is that there's so many good stories to tell. So whether it's that every time Macro puts out a new production, how incredibly proud we are to see stories like Fred Hampton's story or of the 1968 Olympics actually reaching the big screen, right, is just so incredible to watch. Or it might be that in working with farmers globally, right, we have companies that are invested in cacao, others that do agroforestry. Maybe it's in someone's home country where they're able to show, I came to the US and had this incredible career, and here's how I made impact through an investment back home. So one of the things people often say about impact investing compared to traditional investing is that your stories for the cocktail party are just way more interesting, right? Because the things that these companies are doing every day is just so inspiring. And it means reading the quarterly reports is such a different experience. It also means that that enthusiasm around saying, let me really interact with this company, you know, leveraging my brand and my platform to be able to help push out these ideas and support over time becomes much stronger.
That's awesome. I have a saying that life's about lessons. The lessons will keep on coming until we learn them. They'll result in pain until we learn them. And so I'd love for each of you to share a story, a case study of a lesson of an athlete that has invested and had real impact and why they had that impact, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can start with this one. So for us, we worked pretty closely last year with Devin George, who played 11 years in the NBA and is in post-career is now the CEO of his own development group that focuses on real estate, property development, and redevelopment and management. And he's also kind of the executive director of his own nonprofit. So the nonprofit really focuses on mentorship, affordable housing, and generally like sustainable community development within the Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Oakland areas. So we've been working with him to potentially get some of these affordable housing units up on our new real estate platform. But we've seen the success that he's had, particularly because of his hands-on engagement on the ground, kind of making sure that he's involved in kind of the opportunity and the deal flow selection, making sure that, you know, the fund is focused specifically not just on making a profit, but also driving impact, and also being a part of the community to kind of like engage with those that are living in the housing. So we think like, you know, his hands-on impact or his hands-on participation is really what's driving the success there. And we're hopeful that we can kind of leverage our real estate investment platform to continue to help them to, you know, build up similar programs in other cities.
So I'd say, speaking of real estate, one of the platforms that I'm really excited about that's coming online and growing is Own Our Own from Dave Gross. People may know that name, that he was Nipsey Hussle's real estate investment partner in the Crenshaw district and putting together Vector 90, which is a co-working space, and has been working on a project nationally to really look at Black ownership of Black communities. And that is in the context of both affordable housing and then social infrastructure, whether that is more co-working spaces or tech training or daycares or different ways to really re-envision the block to not just be about payday loans and liquor stores, but how do we really make sure as real estate owners, right, to create that opportunity for greater positivity. And Dave is partnering with leaders in different cities. So Luol Deng in Chicago, D'Angelo Russell in Louisville, which needs all the love that it can get right now, to really be the anchor investors and anchor community partners to make sure that these hubs are really authentic to the community vision. And then there's also a crowd-funded platform where then individuals in that community can invest in real estate at a much more affordable price point. So that goes back to the opportunity for athletes to be great anchors, but to invite communities to build wealth right alongside them.
That's awesome. All right, last question. We got a few moments left. I'd love to know what we, in your opinion, all can do to have the most impact. What can we do today to have the most impact? Morgan, I'll start with you, and Tunde, you'll be the big finish. Does that sound fair?
Sounds good.
Sure. So I'll end with the same question I started with, which is simply, where does your money spend the night? Do the athletes that you work with know the answer to this question? Is it places that they can be proud of? And if they don't know, they can certainly ask their financial advisor. If the financial advisor doesn't know, that's a problem, right? Even from a reputational risk perspective of, if you're going to do a philanthropic initiative in one area and your investments are counteracting that thesis, that's a problem, right? So just basically making sure to do that survey of, what are my values? Are my investments aligned with that? And if you're finding that there's any mismatch, there's so many different ways to address that question, starting as simply as, where do you bank? What are opportunities with stocks? How can you look at diverse entrepreneurs? But knowing what you own is really the first step in that process. And if there's questions on where can you go from there, we're always happy to support people with that. We also have a nonprofit initiative that does general education for the athlete and entertainer community, knowing that there's a lot of interest in this impact investment field, but sometimes hard to know exactly how to jump in. So that would be my question and my offer simultaneously.
Thank you. Tunde?
Yeah, and I would echo those sentiments entirely. I think the key here is just intentionality. People have never been more passionate and vocal about making meaningful change in the world. And I think sometimes it can kind of feel like we're small individuals in this massive universe, and we can't really make a difference on our own if we're not, massively powerful in politics or billionaires who are moving massive amounts of money. But the truth is, that's not the case at all. It's really about voting with your dollars and aligning your dollars with your values. So key here for me is just intentionality and consciously choosing kind of what you put your money into and why, and then voicing your concerns through that and kind of supplementing that and supporting that through kind of like actions, whether it's getting involved politically or volunteering or doing things of that nature.
I love that. There's a mathematical equation of luck. What we pay attention to plus what we give intention to create the coincidences that we want. And I appreciate both of you who have given great attention and intention to great coincidences that will benefit all of us and create a legacy for all of us, which will create a better world and a happier world. And we'll be able to shop for more of the right things, thanks to both of you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Tunde, for helping all of us.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Alycia and Tracy.
Thank you, guys.
I want to thank everybody for coming today, for being part of this very important conversation. Any questions, please reach out. I know that a lot of the panelists have been, gracious to share their contact information. I'm just Tracy at theplayersimpact.com. Happy to answer any questions around TPI. Alicia's just added hers. Alycia, anything else you want to add before we say goodnight?
Yeah, so on behalf of Michelle and myself, we want to thank you all for coming out. We hope you learned something, hope you made some new connections. For Champions for Philanthropy, it's really important that everyone knows, you can do well and do good at the same time. You can do good and do well. So we are really excited to partner with Tracy and the Players Impact on this event and hope you all enjoyed it. Special thank you to the CFP team as well as the TPI team. Thank you guys, Emma, Riley, and everyone else. Thank you guys all for your hard work.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Be well.
Good night.